We're back on Get Up, and the NBA Finals are tied at 1 game apiece. Let's check in on how the Stars have been doing so far. It's been an interesting debut finals for Jason Tatum. He shot just 3 of 17 in game 1, then had a plus-minus of -36 in game 2. That was the worst game of his career, regular season or playoffs. Then there's Steph Curry. He's been great. He's carried the Warriors, leading all players with 63 points in the series, the most by anyone 34 or older through the first 2 games of finals since Michael Jordan. And he's had to pick up the slack for Klay Thompson, who is shooting just 30% from the floor, including 4 of 19 in game 2. Our Jeff Van Gundy weighed in with these thoughts on Klay.
I can't envision in my mind how they could win this series, let alone another game, if he can't find a level of, doesn't have to be great, but super impactful and good to really good. They got to get more from Thompson.
All right, which is something I can tell you that being in the arena, I'm never clear on just how evident these things are on TV, but you can see how frustrated Klay Thompson is in the arena and body language, and that he's trying so hard. Every shot that he's taking, when they don't fall, you can see that frustration for a guy who's one of the greatest shooters that ever lived. So it's easy to say they need to get him going. Yeah. It's much harder to figure out how. How do they get Klay Thompson going?
Well, let's keep in mind some of these shots that he missed, like that one right there in game 2, were bunnies. He also took 2 or 3 spot three-pointers that were just short. So some of this may be his legs, some of it's fatigue, maybe some of it's guarding Jaylen Brown. But they've got to use him more off ball. You saw, especially in that third quarter of game 2, where they went strictly to high pick and rolls with Steph Curry and Jordan Poole. They didn't run their normal movement sets, and that's generally speaking where Klay Thompson is at his best. You know, when I would struggle as a shooter, here's what I would think. Let me find a way to get a layup. Let me find a way to get to the free throw line. Let me find a way to get a transition 3. If things aren't going my way in the half court, I've got to figure out other ways to score. And so the Warriors are as good as anyone at getting transition 3s. On a Draymond Green bust out, on a Steph Curry bust out, like they are so good at creating pace and pressure in transition. And that, to me, is where they can get Klay off a little bit.
How do you think, CJ, how do they get this thing going? And maybe you see the question on the screen there, or it was for a moment, and Jeff brought it up. Can they win this thing if we don't get some vintage Klay?
At first I said they couldn't win. Then I looked at how the regular season went, how impactful Jordan Poole was. And I think they can still win, but Jordan Poole has to give them 20 to 30 points a night, which is going to be difficult against the Celtics defense. But outside of Steph Curry, he's the only one that can manufacture points off the bounce, in pick and roll situations, in isolation situations, and he can create off the bounce by driving lanes and being able to find the weak side. So it will be difficult for them to win if he continues to perform and shoot the way he has been, but that just means they need more Jordan Poole, and I think he may be ready to rise to the occasion.
Well, you know, Stephen A. brought up right before the series began that out of the 3 of them, Steph, Klay, and Poole, they need 2 out of the 3 on a given night. And so if Poole, well, look, if he's going to make shots like that one, then that's a whole other kind of conversation. But is that something that we can depend on, JJ?
No, Stephen A. is spot on this. And we've seen in this playoffs where all 3 guys score, and you really don't have a chance to beat the Warriors on those nights. But if 2 of the 3, you give yourself a chance to be really, really good at the end of the game and have a chance to win. The other guy we need to talk about is Andrew Wiggins. And what is interesting about this series, that they are matching up Time Lord. They're matching up Robert Williams III with him. It's not a like-sized position on the matchup. Andrew Wiggins was really impactful in game 1. He struggled a little bit from the field in game 2, obviously playing great defense on Tatum. But he's another guy that can give them a bounce and a lift offensively.
And so just to put it as simply as this, do you expect Klay, and this is not criticism of Klay Thompson, he's one of the great players of all time. He's coming back from not 1 but 2 potentially career-ending injuries that he had basically back-to-back. But if it is because of those injuries and the fatigue that we're seeing here, is it reasonable to expect him to have a couple of huge games in this series?
I think it's reasonable because of his work ethic and his dedication to the game. It's only a matter of time before, as JJ said before, those wide open 3s start to fall. And once he does get to the free throw line, once he does get a transition, or Looney gets an offensive rebound and kicks it out, all you need to do is see the ball go in one time, and then the light kind of comes on. So I expect him to have at least one good game.
Well, if he gets hot, then it could be trouble. Maybe it'll be tomorrow night. We'll see. Game 3 of the NBA Finals coming your way tomorrow night. We have all the action, of course, as always.
The series, folks, the Warriors, even the NBA Finals, with a 107-88 win over the Celtics at 1 game apiece. Series shifting back to the Bean Wednesday for Game 3. Steph Curry scored 29 points. He held it down and then some. Steph, talk to me.
I think it's different just because of the way the team's constructed. There's always a need for me to be aggressive, try to play make, try to score. Understand how the defense is going to guard me and guard us as a team, and be able to counter that. When you compare it to years past, with the depth that we had, with the heavy loading of scoring, and me, KD, Clay had, like, obviously it looks a little different, but and the game flows a little different. But I think this year there's definitely a need for me to be aggressive throughout the game, to create, draw attention, get shots up, and just continue to apply pressure.
With their Game 2 performance, the Warriors are now favored to win the finals again. A reminder, the Celtics have won 13 of 14 NBA titles after winning Game 1. The series now shifts to Boston for Games 3 and 4, where the Celtics are just 5 and 4 this postseason. Okay, JJ, if I remember correctly,
Yes.
you picked the Celtics, right?
I did pick the Celtics.
Okay,
yeah.
so here's what I want to know. Which team should feel better now heading into Game 3? Is it the Warriors or the Celtics?
Well, I honestly think both teams should feel good. I'll tell you why. So the Celtics did their job, and they got a game in Golden State. And obviously they've struggled at home, but now they have home court for this series. And Golden State should feel good because they have played stretches of basketball against this Boston Celtics defense that has looked beautiful. And the third quarter last night was a great example of that. I think both teams have concerns here. And specifically for the Celtics, their turnovers and how to guard Steph Curry in the pick and roll. And that's where I think the biggest adjustment has got to be going forward if you're the Celtics. And maybe some of that is rotation. Maybe some of that is Daniel Tice. It doesn't play, and you go smaller and use Al Horford and use Grant Williams and switch more, or you're up in the pick and roll. The Celtics are trying to stay out of that backside 4-on-3, Stephen A., right? We've seen it so many times where teams blitz Steph Curry, and he's able to throw it back to Kevon Looney or Draymond Green, and all of a sudden it's a 4-on-3 on the backside. So that's a real concern for the Celtics. And for the Warriors, you have not seen the best version of Jason Tatum yet. You know, that to me is a little bit concerning. I didn't think he obviously didn't shoot it well in Game 1. I didn't think he had a bad game because of his playmaking, but I thought last night he was really, really up and down. He made some bad decisions. He took some tough shots. And I don't think you've seen the best version of Tatum. And, of course, give the Warriors credit, which I did in the first hour. And, Stephen A., you talked about Andrew Wiggins as a defender last week, and I downplayed it a little bit. And so I'm willing to admit right now I was wrong. Okay?
Thank you.
Say it again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. But are you going to answer the question?
Yeah, that's what I'm waiting on.
Are you going to answer the question? Answer the
Which
question,
team should
JJ.
feel better?
No,
you dancing like Fred Astaire.
Just tell me which
now,
team
Top
do you
Gun
feel
doesn't
better
dance.
about right now?
I feel better about the Celtics. I
All
made
right,
the
well, you
mistake
didn't
in
say
that
that.
Heat 76ers
You went both
series.
ways.
Hold on. I made the mistake in the Heat 76ers series of flip-flopping halfway through the series. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. I feel better about
So we got to answer. All right, so you feel better about the Celtics.